If you didn't know, Machine Games are releasing an Indiana Jones game soon, and that piqued my interest. I've never played Machine Games' prior entries like Wolfenstein, but I've heard good things, and I absolutely love the Indiana Jones films. Indy could be a great fit for a gaming experience. It's not going to be easy to create a revolutionary adventure experience given how expertly the Uncharted games did, and it could be easy to seem like a lesser version of that franchise, some of my favourite games of all time, but I still think this indie game could be a solid experience. The game is clearly trying to differentiate itself from Uncharted with the first person perspective, meaning we won't see Indy's character model as we play much of the game. It's going for the more intimate experience through the protagonist's eyes. This can have its own sense of immersion, but I will miss seeing whip animations and watching Indy's punches, as they could be pretty dynamic to watch, and those mechanics definitely could have a lot of gameplay value. Ultimately, the perspective we see the protagonist doesn't matter as much as the core game. If the gameplay is fun and varied, we won't feel limited by the visual format. Now, the Wolfenstein games were shooters, so it will be interesting to see how Machine Games uses the bullwhip, and whether we feel that fluid immersion as we grapple enemies and attach to holdings. There's so many games that highlight gunplay, so Indy's whip should be used to full effect in tackling enemies and swinging from heights. Hopefully it plays smoothly as a tool. I would like to see it used in a way like that of a grapple hook. The grapple hook is one of the most fun aspects of traversal games, and though a different beast, the whip has similar potential for movement. Hopefully it's used to its full potential, putting you in Indy's shoes. From a graphical standpoint, I don't have any issues. Some people have said that the game looks slightly dated, and I can see what they mean to an extent. It's not the cinematic detail we've seen in some high quality titles, but it looks good enough for me. The faces look slightly waxy, but I'm cool with a surreal style, and Indy's character model resembles Harrison Ford pretty well. Though Ford isn't voicing the character, Troy Baker has done a great job in capturing Ford's tone in the previews, so it really sounds like Indy. The tone of the game has that Spielberg humour within it, and it feels like a successor to Last Crusade in the glimpses we've seen, which is very nostalgic. The sound effects have the same whip sound effect and punching sounds which just bring you back to those films, and the cutscenes we've seen seem to highlight an exciting, globe-trotting adventure with plenty of set pieces, which honestly sounds perfect. Some of the previews just seem to understand the cheesiness Indy's villains thrive on, nailing the kind of chemistry that the films held. And though the return of the Nazis is a little stale, it is an Indy staple at this point. He's synonymous with beating up Nazis to pop culture. The newer Indiana Jones films feel ever so slightly different, but this game seems like a natural stepping on point from Spielberg and Lucas. And that's one of the most important aspects for me. It's easy to create a game from an established franchise without nailing the magic of that franchise, and Machine Games seem to have recaptured that magic. So the only thing I need proof of is good gameplay and interesting puzzles. And ultimately, that's the most important aspect of any game, the gameplay experience. The combat and action has to feel fluid for me to invest because I want to feel like I'm Indy as I play the game. The Indiana Jones games of the past are rather limited old experiences, with the best being The Emperor's Tomb, which very much feels like a prototype Uncharted experience, but now the technology is advanced enough that there's real potential if the game takes inspiration from hits like Uncharted and Tomb Raider, but builds its own identity. An identity in Indiana Jones' tone and quirks. Comparisons will inevitably be made, but I struggle to see the game being terrible because there's plenty of reference for adventure games which have nailed that journey. And though I don't expect this game to surpass those experiences, if it feels half as good, I'll be satisfied. And it will give me a new media format to enjoy Indiana Jones beyond the films I've watched countless times. Obviously, this video is just talking through what we know of the game and is largely speculative, but I felt inclined to talk about the game because I'm genuinely excited. Only time will tell whether it's worth buying. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and joining Patreon. Links are in the description below. I'd like to give a special thank you to Starfleet Sohail, who supports me on Patreon. You can find him at Starfleet Sohail on YouTube and Twitter.